I stepped away from the table to take a call from my attorney confirming the wire transfer had cleared. $47 million. 4 decades of building the Whitmore boutique hotels from a single bed and breakfast in Savannah into a 15-property chain across the Southeast, all culminating in this moment. Marriott had acquired my life's work, and I was finally ready to slow down, to enjoy my remaining years, to be the grandmother I'd always wanted to be. I walked back toward our table at Peninsula Charleston, the city's most exclusive restaurant, where my granddaughter Emma and her fiancé Derek were waiting. The champagne we'd ordered, a $400 bottle of Dom Perignon, sat sweating in its ice bucket. Emma's engagement ring caught the candlelight, a 2-carat princess cut I'd helped Derek pick out 3 months ago. She looked radiant in her navy cocktail dress, her auburn hair swept up the way my late son used to wear his when he was her age. My son, Thomas. Gone 5 years now to a sudden heart attack at 42. Emma was all I had left of him, and I'd become perhaps too eager to see her happy, too willing to embrace Derek as the son-in-law who would give me great-grandchildren and Sunday dinners and holiday memories. I was 10 feet from the table when a young waitress touched my elbow gently. Her name tag read Claire, and her dark eyes were urgent with something I couldn't quite place. "Mrs. Whitmore," she whispered, "I need to speak with you. Privately. Now." I glanced back at the table. Emma was on her phone, Derek checking his watch impatiently. "What's this about?" "Please." Claire's hand trembled. "The restroom. 30 seconds. Something in her voice made me follow. We stepped into the marble-tiled ladies' room, all brass fixtures and the scent of expensive soap. Claire locked the door behind us. "Ma'am, I don't know how to say this, but I just saw your granddaughter put something in your wine glass." The words tumbled out fast. I was refilling the breadbasket at the next table, and she pulled this tiny vial from her clutch. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, but I saw the whole thing. She poured white powder into your glass and stirred it with her finger. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "That's impossible. Emma would never." "I know how this sounds." Claire pulled out her phone. "I took a photo. Look." The image was grainy but unmistakable. Emma's hand hovering over a wine glass, something small and dark in her fingers. The angle was from behind, but I recognized her dress, her ring, the distinctive dragon tattoo on her shoulder blade that she'd gotten in college. "This has to be a mistake," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Because somewhere deep in my gut, something clicked into place. The way Derek had insisted on this specific restaurant. The way Emma had seemed nervous all evening, unable to meet my eyes. The strange phone call Derek had taken in the car, stepping away and speaking in hushed, angry tones. And further back, the memory I'd been pushing away for months. My husband Ronald, in his final weeks before the cancer took him last year, gripping my hand and saying, "Margaret, I don't trust that boy. There's something wrong with Derek. Promise me you'll be careful." I'd dismissed it as morphine-induced paranoia. Ronald had always been protective, especially after Thomas died. But what if he'd seen something I'd been too grief-stricken to notice? "What should I do?" I asked Claire. "I don't know, ma'am. I almost didn't say anything, but if something happened to you and I'd seen it..." She bit her lip. "Maybe call the police? They'd need evidence. They'd need to catch them in the act." My mind raced. Decades of business negotiations, of reading people, of making split-second decisions kicked in. "Claire, I need you to trust me. When I go back out there, I'm going to pretend everything is normal. I'm going to drink from my granddaughter's glass instead of mine. Can you help me make sure I don't mix them up? You want to switch them? If there's really something in my drink, and I accuse them now, they'll deny everything. They'll dispose of the evidence. But if Emma drinks from the glass she poisoned..." I couldn't finish the sentence. The horror of what I was suggesting, testing my own granddaughter by essentially poisoning her with her own trap, made me nauseated. But if she really had tried to kill me, if my beautiful Emma, who I'd raised since her father died, had been twisted into someone capable of this, I needed to know, and I needed proof. Your glass is the one closest to the window, Claire whispered. Hers is by the bread basket. I nodded, fixing the positions in my mind. Then I checked my appearance in the mirror, smoothing my silver hair, applying fresh lipstick with a steady hand I didn't feel. When I walked back to the table, I was Margaret Whitmore, hotel magnate, woman who'd negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching. Not a terrified grandmother watching her world crumble. Sorry about that, I said brightly, sliding into my seat. You know attorneys can't help themselves. Everything finalized? Derek asked. His smile was warm, but I noticed his eyes kept darting to my wine glass, to the one by the window. All signed and sealed. 47 million reasons to celebrate. I reached for the glass near the breadbasket, Emma's glass, and raised it to new beginnings. Emma's face went white. Grandmother, wait. But I was already drinking, maintaining eye contact with her over the rim. The wine was excellent, crisp and cold, with notes of apple and honey. I couldn't taste anything unusual. But then, I didn't know what I was looking for. You should toast too, Derek said, his voice tight. He pushed the other glass toward her, the one by the window, the poisoned one. Emma stared at it like it was a snake. I'm not really thirsty right now. Come on, baby. Your grandmother just made a fortune. Drink up. Derek's hand wrapped around Emma's wrist, guiding her fingers toward the stem of the glass. There was something in his touch that made my blood run cold. Not affection, but control. I said I'm not thirsty, Derek. Emma tried to pull away, but Derek's grip tightened. Drink the damn wine, Emma. The mask was slipping. The charming, attentive fiancé was fading, replaced by something harder, meaner. I saw it now, what Ronald must have seen, the possessiveness in how Derek touched her, the way Emma flinched, just slightly, when he raised his voice. Let go of my granddaughter, I said quietly. Mrs. Whitmore, I think we need to have a family conversation. Derek released Emma's wrist, but kept his hand on the table between us, blocking our exit. Emma and I have been talking, and we really think you need to consider your health at your age. All this stress from the sale, living alone in that big house. Derek, stop, Emma whispered. Please. We think it might be time to look into some assisted living options. Somewhere with medical staff, where you could be looked after properly. And of course, Emma and I would be happy to help manage the estate, take some of that burden off your shoulders. I understood then. This wasn't just about the 47 million from the sale. It was about everything. My house in Charleston's historic district, worth 3 million alone. My investment portfolio, my art collection, my jewelry, the trust funds I'd set up for future great-grandchildren. They wanted it all, and they wanted me in a facility somewhere, sedated and compliant, while they systematically drained everything I'd built. That's very thoughtful, I said, my voice steady as steel. But I think I'll manage my own affairs, thank you. Derek's jaw clenched. Emma, tell her. Tell me what, sweetheart? I looked at my granddaughter. Her face was tear-stained now, mascara running in black rivulets. She looked impossibly young, impossibly trapped. I'm sorry, grandmother, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I never wanted. Derek said it would be quick, that you wouldn't feel anything, that it was better this way than watching you get old and sick and… Emma, shut up. Derek's voice cracked like a whip. He showed me articles about painless ways, Emma continued, words spilling out in a rush. He said you'd want this, that you told him once you never wanted to end up in a nursing home like your mother did, that you'd rather… I said shut up. Derek lunged across the table, his hand reaching for Emma's throat. I've never been a small woman. Years of hauling luggage, managing properties, climbing stairs in hotels from Atlanta to Charlotte gave me a solid frame and surprising strength. I grabbed the ice bucket with both hands and swung it at Derek's head. It connected with a hollow thunk. Champagne and ice water exploded across the white tablecloth. Derek reeled backward, blood streaming from a cut above his eyebrow, and stumbled into a waiter carrying a tray of entrees. They went down together in a crash of porcelain and cursing. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Diners screaming, staff rushing over, and somewhere in the confusion I heard Claire's voice. "I called 911. Police are on their way." Emma sat frozen in her chair, staring at her hands, at her engagement ring. Then, slowly, she reached for the wine glass by the window, the poisoned one, and raised it to her lips. "No!" I knocked it from her hand. The glass shattered on the floor, dark wine spreading across marble like blood. "Don't you dare, Emma. Don't you dare take the easy way out." "I deserve it," she sobbed. "I almost killed you. I'm a monster. You're a 27-year-old girl who fell in love with the wrong man." I pulled her against me, held her while she shook. "But you're going to face this. You're going to tell the truth. You understand me?" Through her tears. "Yes, grandmother." The police arrived within minutes. They separated us, took statements, photographed evidence. Derek was handcuffed and read his rights while EMTs checked his head wound. He kept insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that Emma was mentally unstable, that I'd attacked him unprovoked. But Claire's testimony and the photo on her phone told a different story. And when the police tested both wine glasses, one came back positive for a massive dose of crushed Ambien and Xanax, enough to cause respiratory failure in someone my age, the detective said. Enough to look like a tragic accident, an elderly woman who'd had too much champagne and simply didn't wake up. They took the vial from Emma's purse too. Her fingerprints were all over it. At the police station, Emma told them everything. How Derek had started suggesting my death was inevitable within weeks of their engagement. How he'd researched my estate, my holdings, calculated exactly what Emma would inherit as my only living heir. How he'd convinced her it was mercy, that I was old and lonely and wouldn't last much longer anyway, that they were just speeding up the inevitable. How he'd been doing the same thing to his previous girlfriend, a widow in Hilton Head, but she'd gotten suspicious and kicked him out. How there was one before that too, in Savannah, whose family had paid him $50,000 just to disappear after things got complicated. Derek Hartman wasn't even his real name. He was Daniel Hutchins, originally from Jacksonville, with a record of fraud and identity theft in 3 states. He'd found Emma at a grief support group after her father died, recognized her vulnerability, researched her wealthy grandmother, and executed a plan he'd apparently perfected over years. Emma had fallen for every word. Young, grieving, desperate for someone to fill the void her father's death had left. She'd let herself be molded into an accomplice, convinced she was acting out of love. The trial took place 8 months later. I sat in the courtroom every single day, watching Derek's lawyer try to paint Emma as the mastermind and him as another victim. But the evidence was overwhelming. The timeline showed Derek had purchased the drugs weeks before he'd even mentioned the idea to Emma. His laptop revealed searches for untraceable poisons, elderly heart attack symptoms, how to fake natural death. Text messages to another woman, there was always another woman, where he'd bragged about landing the big fish and calculated his payout timeline. Emma testified against him. Her voice shook, but she told the truth. She pled guilty to conspiracy and attempted murder, throwing herself on the mercy of the court. The prosecutor, seeing a manipulated young woman rather than a hardened criminal, offered a deal, 5 years with possibility of parole after 3, in exchange for her cooperation. Derek got 18 years without parole. I watched them lead him away in shackles, still insisting he'd done nothing wrong, that Emma had manipulated him. Even at the end, he couldn't stop lying. Emma served 2 years at Leith Correctional Institution before making parole. I visited her every month, watching her work through addiction counseling because, yes, Derek had been feeding her pills too, keeping her compliant in therapy for her grief that she'd never properly processed. She earned her GED in prison, took online classes in hospitality management, and wrote me letters filled with apologies, and slowly, carefully, hope. When she was released, I didn't let her come home immediately. I'd learned from Ronald, from my own mistakes about enabling and trusting too easily. Emma moved into a halfway house, got a job as a front desk clerk at a Hampton Inn, attended mandatory counseling sessions. She had to prove she'd changed, that she'd faced what she'd done and understood the weight of it. That took another year. Today, Emma manages one of the Whitmore properties that I'd held back from the Marriott sale, a boutique inn in Beaufort that specializes in hosting women in crisis. Abuse survivors, addiction recovery, women rebuilding their lives. She understands them in a way I never could. She's been where they are. We have dinner every Sunday now. She's dating someone new, a social worker named Marcus, who makes her laugh and treats her with kindness. She brings him to family dinners, and I watch how he interacts with her, respectful, patient, never controlling. She knows the difference now. As for Claire, the waitress who saved my life, I paid for her remaining 3 years at College of Charleston, where she studied criminal justice. She graduated last May, and she's starting a job with the Charleston Police Department in their victim advocacy unit this fall. She came to see me before her graduation, brought me flowers and a card that read, "Thank you for teaching me that speaking up matters, even when it's terrifying, especially when it's terrifying." I keep that card on my desk, next to the photo of Ronald from our 50th anniversary party. Sometimes I look at it and think about the chain of choices that led us all here. If Claire had stayed silent, if I'd drunk from my own glass, if Emma had succeeded, but she didn't. And in a strange way, that poisoned wine glass gave my granddaughter her life back. She had to hit bottom prison, public shame, losing everything before she could start rebuilding herself into someone real, someone strong, someone who looks at Derek's old manipulation tactics and feels nothing but disgust. Last week, Emma and I were going through old photo albums, and we came across pictures from her childhood. Her father pushing her on a swing, her blowing out candles at her 8th birthday party, her high school graduation, so proud in her cap and gown. "I wish Dad could see who I am now," she said quietly. "He'd be proud of how far you've come," I told her. "Not of what you did, never of that, but of how you faced it, how you're making amends. Do you forgive me, grandmother?" I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, it's a process, renewed daily. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. "Some days are easier than others. But I love you, Emma." That never changed. She cried then, the way she hadn't allowed herself to cry in years. Real tears, not the manipulated performance Derek had trained into her. And I held my granddaughter, this woman who'd tried to murder me and who I was slowly learning to trust again, and I thought about all the ways we fail each other and save each other and keep trying anyway. Ronald was right to warn me. I should have listened. But I also think he'd understand why I chose to give Emma another chance, not because she deserves forgiveness, but because real family means showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The 47 million sits in trusts now, carefully structured so that no single person can access it all. Emma gets a modest salary from the inn, enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. She'll inherit when I die, but only after proving 10 years of stable, independent living. My attorney thinks I'm being too generous. My accountant agrees. But they didn't see Emma in that courtroom, taking responsibility for the first time in her life. They don't see her every Sunday, working to become someone worthy of a second chance. I'm 68 years old. I've built an empire, buried a husband and a son, survived a murder attempt by my own granddaughter, and lived to tell about it. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Trust is earned slowly and lost quickly, but love, real love, is stubborn enough to survive even poison in a wine glass. Just barely. Just enough. And sometimes, just enough is all you need.